Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very sorry to make you wait for this session on Synergies. Apologies. Synergies are cool because this session was one of the first fully booked ones. We have lots of interest in the topic of synergies. We also heard from the first results, the first input to the public consultation, that 3% of respondents feel that synergies are not important. 3%. That means a lot of other people expect a lot from synergies. So this is what we will discuss in this session. We have everything in place to have a very dynamic, interactive session. You see a panel here of excellent speakers who have been involved in synergies, who are maybe still bruised or scarred by the synergies, but they will tell us all about it. I'm Kurt Vandenbergen. I'm Director for Planning and Programming in DG Research, and I also have the privilege of being Acting Director for Research and Innovation Outreach, together with my colleague Magda, who is head of the unit for European Research Area, widening, including synergies. So what we will discuss in this session for about an hour is how can we really facilitate and operationalize synergies between EU funds. Not just because we like synergies, it is cool, but we want to really maximize the impacts from the investments at European level. We want every euro to go further and further than it has already done. We want to make sure that we have the correct deployment of the results we get from all our programs, and if programs can work together and the actors can work together across programs, then we can have more of this deployment. And we want, of course, more diffusion of knowledge, of results, of solutions, and spreading the excellence. That is a very important priority as well. As I said, the first analysis of the feedback we got to the public consultation confirms the very high interest in synergies. So this is a message also to the Commission, to ourselves, that we need to take this very seriously. We have already done this. We have worked together across services, some of which are represented here today, to make sure that we have the enabling provisions that we will need in the future in our programs. These provisions are still subject to debate with the European Council and the Parliament, so the session is also very timely in that sense, because every feedback we get from you, we will be able to make best use of it. The negotiations are ongoing on Horizon Europe, but also on the Common Provision Regulation for the structural funds, and you know that there is a public consultation open on the possible changes to the General Block Exemption Regulation, which governs the rules on state aid, which of course are essential. We have heard that from you for making the synergies work. Earlier today, there was a session on synergies across all programs in the European budget in the future. What we will do in this session here today is really focus on the synergies between Horizon Europe and the cohesion funds, and how can we enhance the regional dimension in European Union research and innovation, while of course maintaining the principle of excellence, but not polarizing between excellence and widening and cohesion, but really make these two much better work together. As I said, we have an excellent panel of speakers with us today. Thank you very much for joining. I will briefly introduce Lena Tsipuri from the University of Athens, who has been doing great work on the policy support facility exercise, a mutual learning exercise between our member states and national administrations on synergies. And you will tell us something about this, Lena. Mr. Christophe Clergeau, Regional Councillor of the region of Pays de Loire in France. Very active member of the Committee of Regions, was rapporteur on Horizon 2020, as well as rapporteur for Horizon Europe. We received a letter earlier this week from Mr. Clégeot and a few other members of the Committee of the Regions, again calling for much more ambition. We're not daring enough, and we need to do more to bring the regions in. We hear you, Mr. Clégeot, I can assure you. We also have Mr. José Carlos Caldera, member of the board at INESC, Technology and Science. Importantly, Mr. Caldera is a former president of Portugal's National Innovation Agency, and he has 25 years of experience with EU, national and regional funding instruments. So I think lots of experience you can share with us, Mr. Caldera. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Mrs. Jana Valkova from the Joint Secretariat of the Interreg Central Europe program, who has also been involved in shaping an experimental call coordinating project results across funds, notably Horizon 2020 and Interreg Central Europe. Actors of Synergies with bruises and scars, as I said, but also very clear ideas, I hope, for the future, how we can make it better. And on the Commission side, we have 4 eminent colleagues from various DGs in the European Commission. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you experience during these RNI days that this is not DG Research and Innovation talking with you. These are all Commission services that want to make it work with you and for you. I would like to welcome Magda de Carli, Head of Unit in the Directorate for Research and Innovation Outreach and DG Research. Katja Reppel, who comes from DG Radio, a very long ally with us on making Horizon Europe, Horizon programs and regional funds work together. Thank you very much for being here, Katja. We have Elisabeth Meindl from DG Competition, with whom we have worked a lot on all the state aid aspects. Thank you, Elisabeth, for the cooperation. And we have Johan Stirna, who used to be working in DG Research until recently, but has joined the Joint Research Center, the institute in Sevilla, who is very instrumental in the smart specialization strategies. Thank you also for being here. Johan, let us can immediately go into the heart of the matter, and I would like to ask Lena maybe to start. We will keep the interventions short, to the point, 5 minutes maximum, because we also want to privilege interaction with you in the audience and with the viewers on the live stream who are also following through internet. Lena, please.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. Thank you very much, Kurt. I have 5 minutes, so 5 points. And to start, I want to say that while I agree with Kurt that synergies are cool, I have to say they suffer from things that are cool because they are sometimes misunderstood, they are inflated, and you risk losing the essence. So my first point is, if as a region or as a big institute, you want to create synergies, you have to start by understanding the concept. We talk about the regional concept here. I would argue that some big actors make a difference at the regional level. But if you really go for the most ambitious part of the synergies, then you can use the Horizon ESIF synergies as a leverage for broader synergies, because there are more funds than just Horizon and ESIF. There are national funds, there are non-governmental organizations, charities, you name it. So the concept of synergies is terribly important. We need to understand it, and we need to understand that it has various levels of ambition. Now, if you read the paper that was commissioned by Magda's unit, you will see that ambitions range from, simply an actor in a region thinking, okay, I need 2 things. These 2 things can be managed, can be funded by Horizon and ESIF. I'll try to get both simultaneously or in parallel, it doesn't matter. This is just one idea, a once-off synergy. And then we can range all the way to the highest ambitions, and Ireland is the best case. I would argue Slovenia is also a case you can look at, where the region says, okay, in a horizon of 10 years, so more than one programming period, using the smart specialization strategies, we envisage to become excellent with various institutes, with funds from the national budget or the regional budget, with specific actors in 2, 3, 4 big areas. So in this case, you have the really what we call dynamic strategic synergies. You go for the long-term horizon. Now, of course, everybody will argue that synergies are full of obstacles. You can see on my background slide the most often cited obstacles. And I want to say there are two different categories of obstacles. They are the technical obstacles. So what we heard most in the interviews was DG Comp, state aid, big obstacle. I'm happy to hear that DG Comp is improving in this direction. The Commission is doing its fair share. You may read, those of you who know me, that I'm critical to the Commission sometimes, but in the particular area, the Commission is really improving from year to year, from programming period to programming period. I have my doubts about certain member states, and that's one of my big questions to the Commission. What do you do with the member states that are not doing their fair share? And of course, researchers and regions complain to the national authorities. Why are you gold-plating the synergies aspect? So these are the areas, audits, regulatory frameworks, competition, where there are technical obstacles, but these technical obstacles can be overcome. There is another type of obstacles, which are I would call them the real obstacles, the social obstacles. And these are the obstacles where you need a change of mindsets. It's behavioral economics. And there are two aspects there. One is inertia, path dependency. Regional policymakers like to do what they know. The devil likes what he knows best. And the reason is because they don't risk much. When they experiment, they risk. They risk under performance. They risk under subscription. They risk somebody telling them, why did you change that? Because it was anyway fine. So my point is that this is a real obstacle, path dependency. And the other real obstacle is uncertainty, because Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe in the future is about excellence and needs to remain about excellence, which means that there is an element of uncertainty. You can't plan. If you are the cousin of the regional, of the mayor or the regional authority, somebody in the regional authority, you can say, okay, I'll have a grant and I'm more or less sure I'll get it. I'll apply to Horizon 2020. I don't know if I'll get it. You need dynamic synergies to increase the probability of getting funded. You need to become excellent. So for me, these two elements of uncertainty and inertia are the 10 years horizon you want to fight for, you want to change. Ireland did change it in 10 years' time, and I don't know if there are any Irish people in the audience, but I claim that part of the success of the Celtic Tiger was this change of mindsets, and it was synergies, because before they were called synergies, actually. So these are the main aspects. What is synergies? Can it be used? Can it be used as a leverage? How do I overcome, and in what time horizon do I overcome the problems? There are good and bad practices in the study. You can read the good practices. The good practices prove that the technical aspects are surmountable. The Seal of Excellence wasn't, but it will be in the future, we hear, and that's very good news. And then you have to plan regionally how you overcome the real, the path-dependent, the technical, the non-technical aspects. These are the good practices. What are the bad practices? The bad practices are about not experimenting, not changing, not understanding, not being ambitious. My advice then, and I finish because my 5 minutes are over, my advice is increase ambitions. It's not bad to start low. You still increase ambitions if you start from nowhere, but have a time horizon with increasing ambitions. Redesign cooperation. The breaking silos, the institutional aspects are not negligible. You have to fight for them. There are good practices for that. Target synergies and not expect them to happen. and experiment, experiment, experiment. These are the ideas of the study, and I recommend you to read it if you want to go for it, because there are many good examples you can learn from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lena. And indeed, the report of the mutual learning exercise is publicly available. We all need to become Irish or Slovene. So if you want to become Irish or Slovene, please read the mutual learning exercise report. Mr. Clergeau, do we all need to become Irish? Please, over to you.
Ireland is a small country, so it's easier than in very big ones. So regional element is very important in large countries. So I'm coming from Pays de la Loire region, from the city of Nantes, our new European innovation capital. So
congratulations.
I think we can have some element of evidence-based element to a discussion. So sorry for my poor English. I will try to give my main ideas with my notes. Then perhaps in the discussion it will be easier. First thing for us, and I totally agree with Lena, the debate is not about coordination between research, European policy, and cohesion policy. It's about ambition, and it's about how innovation ecosystems, regional ecosystems, can be actors to reach the goals of Horizon Europe and the ambition to help to reach the ambition of European Union. And our main problem is that place-based approach of research on innovation is not a core idea in Horizon Europe. There has been some progress, but it's still not the core idea. And we think it's still possible to do new things, to look for new solutions. The synergies question is still in the Parliament, in the Council, so we have the debates, and we have to do better, and we have to do better together. So, what for? It's not about just transferring money from the regions to the Commission. It's not just about getting money to Seal of Excellence. It's about joining our forces and building together new projects and new ideas. And this necessitates a change of method, a change of approach. We need to act together, to build together new projects, and to finance together new projects, new bottom-up projects, new bottom-up approach. And regions agree to pool money from their budget or from cohesion policy if there is co-design, co-construction of policies on projects. This is the main idea we are fighting for. So how we can do that? We have on the slide our 5 C's as 5 complementary pillars to succeed in synergies. The first one is the full recognition of local collective initiatives on ecosystems. It's GRC, evidence-based production. You produce 4 recent studies about Boston, Ljubljana, Göteborg, Espoo. You show how innovation ecosystem bring new solution and new result for the European dynamic. So this must be fully recognized. Second element, coherence of political objectives. But if you want to have coherent political objectives, it's not about aligning regional authorities on European objectives. It's about debating together and deciding together about what must be our common goals and our common objectives. And we have a problem with strategic planning. Yes, there is Research and Innovation Day, is a very good opportunity to participate. But then, where will it be possible to discuss how to manage the program all over the years? Is there any place for stakeholders? Is there any place for Parliament? Is there any place for region? We think no. We think there's only place for Commission and Member States. And if there is no debate about how to make the implementation of the European Europe program, it will be very difficult to have complementarity of policies between European, national, and regional level. Then, fourth one, compatibility leads to deal with a state aid problem. We'll go, and we are allies. to fight this problem. And the fifth one is, again, co-construction and co-design of policies if co-financing. And this could be a revolution, a radical shift for DG research. So just collectively, let's be disruptive. I'm sure all of you would like to. And then to conclude, there is a potential tool to implement this disruption. It is, for us, European partnership. If European partnership is not only synonymous for a limited list of programs built between Commission, Member States, and big business, but a method to implement Europe across pillars 2 and 3, and strengthen joint support to bottom-up projects led by ecosystem. And this is a very important debate for us. Will it be possible to have co-fund and co-program actions coming from the regions, coming bottom-up, sometimes corresponding with the list of partnership or mission, and perhaps not. It must be open. And last word, to sum up my point of view, the questions of synergy is not about pulling money, but joining forces and creating new fields for co-construction and co-design of research and innovation projects and policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clégeot. There can never be enough co-creation, co-design, and co-involvement. A message well understood. Let me then go to Mr. Caldeira, please, to give your perspective from Portugal.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Can I have the slide there? That I put it there? Well, I was asked, because I have experience supposedly on this, to bring some examples. So I have only one example that I would like to show if it's possible. It's not the previous one, the previous slide. Not this one, the next one. Yeah, this one. So this is an example of synergies. And I like it particularly because, first of all, it's very old. So it's not from the Horizon 2020, it's not from the 7th framework program, it's from the 6th framework program. So which means I've been working on synergies for 15 years now. It's also a very complete example because it combines the utilization of infrastructures funded at national, regional level to test and validate results from European projects, which is the first case. So there was a European project to develop advanced technology for customized production. And these results were tested in a pilot plan existing in Vigevano in Italy for the shoe industry. And then there is the other type of synergy, which is cross-fertilization, which is critical, it's very, very important for Europe, which is for those horizontal technologies like kits to be able to transfer them to other sectors. And so there was a sector in Portugal, a company, metalworking, completely different from shoes, of course, that was facing the same problem, customized products. So we used national funds to take the result from a European project that was being tested and validated in the shoe industry to bring it to a high-precision metalworking company. So, and also combines a more mature sector with a more advanced sector. So this is an example of synergies that I had in my past life. And as it was mentioned, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity, the privilege, after these experiences, to be a chairman of the National Innovation Agency. Can you give me the other slide? So when I got there, the first thing I did was to make this slide, which is a slide that shows the different instruments existing at national and European level to fund the entire innovation cycle, including grants, loans, fiscal incentives. So, and in one slide, they can show companies what they can use, what is there. Because before that, if a company wants to know this, they have to talk with 3 different organizations. For an SME, this is nightmare. So I can show them all the instruments existing and how they can combine them to cover the innovation cycle. Okay? And this is a little bit from this experience that I took my notes to say 3 things. One, we should not start discussing instruments. We should start discussing strategy. Because then from the strategies, then we are able to think about which instruments and what combination of instruments then we need to implement that strategy. So that's why the risk-free strategy or European strategy are, in my opinion, so important, and this should be the starting point. We need to have a clear understanding that we have to consider the whole innovation cycle, not only the research part. We need to understand the innovation ecosystem, as it was mentioned, and their actors, and to ensure a flow of knowledge and people along the innovation cycle. So we need to then we can design the instruments needed to support this, and what we need to fund, at which level, which kind of funding level, that we can ensure this. So it's basically how can we set up and support an innovation ecosystem which is capable of promoting this industrial transformation and have a territorial impact, namely via innovation diffusion, as it was mentioned, and also interregional collaboration, which is also very important in these cases. And to do that, my first message is apart from many other things that was mentioned, it's very important, it's fundamental to reinforce the capability of regions and managing authorities, so which means more people, but especially more skills and knowledge to develop and implement risk-free. And to do that, my concrete suggestion is that there should be an envelope under technical assistance specifically to do that. So regions cannot use it to anything else except for that. That will be my first suggestion. Now, the second comment is about synergies. As it was mentioned, there are different types of synergies. And unfortunately, every time I talk about synergies, usually I hear the most complex cases, which are combining in the same operation different types of funds. And this is it's a nightmare, by the way. It's the most complex thing. Well, it could be in the legislation, very nice. Try to implement it in practice, it's a nightmare. And then with that, we forget that there are other types of synergies which are simpler, not simple, simpler, but very, very important, and we are not pushing for them, which are, for example, complementary funding, sequencing funding, like I showed there for takeover of results, for pushing more into innovation cycle, also support cross-fertilization. And so we should consider what I call the three types, so complementary, the more complex one, which is this funding, this joint funding, and one in the middle, which for me is also very important, which I call collaborative funding, which means we have a common goal, but we gather under the same umbrella of this common goal different types of projects, funding with different type of instruments. So they are independent, so they are not so complex, but they are under the same type of objective. And this is very important, particularly for some interregional collaboration, as it was mentioned before. So, about 1 year ago, I was asked by some people from the Commission talk about this, and I made my wish list for this Christmas, for this next Christmas. What I would like to have in this next Christmas, so which means more or less at the end of this negotiation. So I made these three wish lists. First one, the European ERDF regulation, so the European ERDF, should have a sentence there, very clear, very simple, saying, if regions or countries want to replicate Horizon Europe instruments with structural funds, they can. Point. They can replicate, okay? Independently of the rules of the national ERDF, it's not mandatory. If they want, they can replicate the exact instruments, because it's critical for synergies that we not only simplify, but we harmonize the instruments and the rules. So this is the first push. If they want to replicate, they can do it. And this is very important. So this means eligible costs, the evaluation criteria, whatever. There are two things that I accept that can be different. The funding rate, because of course, I know that if you are using structural funds, there are issues with the funding rate, maybe not 100% like in the European, so it could be 70, 50, whatever, it's a large companies. That's okay for me. The funding rate, it's okay. And eventually also the type of beneficiaries, because if in some structural funds, they're only for SMEs, so we cannot fund large companies, but that's okay. But the rules, the regulations, the instruments should be possible to do the same. The second wish is if a set of regions, as it was mentioned here before, if a set of regions decided to go together and with their own funds start common projects, common program, again, aligned with missions or independently, if they put their own funds, they can do it, and they could use structural funds, and if they use similar instruments like the European ones, they should get a generous top-up. Yes. So an incentive to harmonize rules, to simplify things. That would be an incentive from the... And my third suggestion is, my third wish list is, if those regions decide, but by the way, this is still what I call a virtual common pot, so it's not a real common pot. So each region will be funding, they will get together, each region will still be funding their own beneficiaries, so it's not going to fund others, so that should be clear, otherwise it will be very difficult for regions to accept this. Now the third one is, if those regions, instead of creating new managing authorities, new funding bodies, decide to deliver the central management of this program to the European Commission under European rules, with the same rules, in that case, this should be state aid compliant, so which means they should be like Horizon Europe. And these are my three wish lists, my three wishes, and then I have the questions a bit later. But if I get this one, I'll be very happy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Caldera. We do not only have Christmas, we also have Santa Claus in Belgium, and I hope they will listen to you. Last speaker is Mrs. Jana Valkova, please. Very interested to hear your experience also from the Interreg project.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Interreg Central Europe, which is a European territorial cooperation program that funds transnational cooperation in 76 regions across Central Europe. And our program has always encouraged the projects to create synergies and to cooperate with projects funded from different funding schemes and initiatives. But recently we have started thinking what we can actually do for the people living in the regions to better benefit from research results from projects funded by Horizon. And we were very lucky to have a support from the program member states that actually approved an idea to open a pilot call, experimental call, bringing actors from our projects together with actors from Horizon and FP7 projects. We were cooperating on this pilot exercise with DG RTD, with Unit for Common Data and Knowledge Management. And that was a great help for us. So the call that was open had pilot character mainly in two elements. One was that there was a rule that it had to build on existing results from projects, from at least two projects from Interreg Central Europe, and one project funded by centrally managed funding scheme Horizon 2020 or FP7, but also others like LIFE, COSME, etc. And another element that was new to this call was really a strive for impact. So we asked the beneficiaries not to submit proposals to develop something new in a new landscape of partnership with partners from Horizon, but really to build on the results that they have developed in their previous projects. So it was capitalization, exploitation call. This was the focus. But before we launched the call, we actually ran a survey with our beneficiaries to ask them if they are interested in doing this and if they find this as an added value for the regions. And the results of the survey showed that more than 2/3 of our beneficiaries found this very important, but actually most of them didn't work in organizations that would have been involved in Horizon 2020 projects. So it wasn't really easy for them to find the partners and to really uptake the research results in what they were doing for the regions at the regional level. And those who actually worked in organizations that were also involved in Horizon projects, like universities, because this is 1/5 of our beneficiaries anyway, still the level of uptake and the bridging between results and what is being done in Horizon projects and Interreg projects was very low. So we realized very quickly that if we want to launch this experimental call, we will have to invest a lot of energy and pay attention to matchmaking and to provide a lot of support to the beneficiaries. So we organized a couple of matchmaking events, one Horizon Info Day here in Brussels, cross-fertilization workshop in Vienna. And we also developed together with DG RTD a matchmaking tool that helped our beneficiaries easier find partners from Horizon 2020 that work on the same topics and that they can actually create the partnership synergies and benefit from that. So these were the support measures, and we also invested quite a lot of time in individual consultations with our applicants to really explain to them what we expect and what the logic of this call is. And the results so far are that we got 23, the call is very small financially, but we got 23 very good proposals from which it's obvious that the applicants really got the logic and that they really found the right partners to join forces and submit to Interreg-CE, to our call. We are still in the assessment phase, so there's not much more that I could share with you at this moment. But in these 23 proposals, what we know is that they were building on 46 Horizon projects and 46 Interreg-CE projects. So there's quite a strive to go beyond the minimal rules that we have set in the call. So it also shows the commitment of the actors really to join forces and build bridges. Some of the proposals, I can give you an example. Some of them work in preservation of cultural heritage at risk due to hazardous events like floods and landslides, and they are using the Copernicus services and data processing and models integrated from Horizon 2020 experience to actually help protecting cultural heritage. So there are some really nice ideas and examples how research results from Horizon projects can be used actually in regions and in what our projects are doing. For the lessons learned, probably it's a bit too early to draw any at this stage, and we would need to see the projects at the in the implementation and at the end of the implementation to see what the impact of this call was. But if there are any representatives of other funding schemes that would like to try this pilot activity out, maybe the first lessons learned from us is it's important to select topics that have really good potential for exploitation. They have high technology readiness level. They focus on close-to-market solutions and deployment-oriented topics. For us, it was important to go mainstream and not niche because that really facilitates the matchmaking. If you go for niche, very specific topics might be harder for the regional actors to find the good actors working on the topics in the research field. And what was important, and that's what I have already mentioned, is we needed to invest a lot of energy in promotion and providing support to the beneficiaries to really find good partners and develop good applications. So my two key messages, just to wrap up, would be it's important to focus on nurturing if we want the synergies to actually happen, and we ask the partners in the regions to do something about it. We also need to probably help them in doing so, because they might be interested in doing so, but the process is just not at this moment in Central Europe happening naturally. And second message would be the strive and focus on higher impact. So for us, it was really important that they are not starting to work on new topics, but they really build on what has been developed in their previous projects, and they capitalize and exploit these results. So that's probably it. And my question that I have formulated relates to the slide. So I don't know if it's the right moment to ask
We can
now.
come back to that if you agree. Thank you very much, Mr. Volkova. That's a really interesting experience. And we want to see a lot more of this experimentation. Many good things start small and then grow. And we hope that your experiment will definitely grow. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard four very complementary perspectives. Lots of food for thought, but especially food for work for the Commission services. And all of us, because synergies will not happen because the Commission wants it. Synergies will happen if we're all involved in this. I will turn in a minute to my colleagues for a few quick reactions. But the idea, of course, of the R&I days is that we listen to you. The Commission is not here to make promotion for itself, but really to listen to you. So before I turn to my colleagues, I want to see if there are people in the room among you who have some burning question, some burning idea you want to share, or some irresistible emotion to share with anyone here on the panel. Yes, please. Please briefly introduce yourself and try to keep it to a tweet-like message.
My name is Miroslav Haltov. I'm representing the JU Shift to Rail, the initiative based on rail transport. And my question is, how we can probably use the synergies with regions in order to promote the potential of a railway transport in the regional fundings and working together as a PPP activity, because there is the public-private partnership activity.
And that's already an answer to Mr. Clergeau's, one of Mr. Clergeau's calls, I think, from partnerships, the role of partnerships in putting off synergies. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Angel Sorduña. I'm the Executive Director of Aspire, another PPP, working with the process industries. We definitely welcome the combination of funds. We don't see it easy. And there is a reference here that the European partnerships can definitely support on the co-design with the regions. We have in our roadmap an idea of the hubs for circularity that addresses and targets specifically the regions and smart cities to a certain extent. But there are more than 300, whatever number, 373, I think, regions in Europe. How do we approach all of them? We are a team of 4, and that's the reality of all the partnerships. So that would be very interesting. How can we approach them? How can we collaborate with the Commission or with the Committee of the Regions or with Interact in the case of the Interreg programs, in which I was also working some years ago, to collaborate on that?
How do we do the matchmaking and the co-creation? Very important question. There's a lady over there. I'll take 2 or 3 more and then turn to my colleagues in the Commission.
Thank you very much. I'm Sarah English from Scotland House here in Brussels and also part of the Erin and Vanguard Initiative networks. I suppose to the panel, but also perhaps to the colleague there, I think one of the things that's maybe slightly missing from the conversation, from the points of the conversations we have about synergies and the role of the regions, is that we're awfully focused on the funding synergies. And I think a lot of the synergies, and this comes back to your point, come from more about work on policy work, working about how we, and coming back to your point about how do we take learning and examples and accelerate them or scale them up. And these are conversations that are happening in another room here about redefining prosperity, looking at Scottish examples, how that can be helpful to other European economies. I think we need to have that conversation also in the context of the regions, because regions aren't only focused on money that we get from the EU, we're also very focused on the learning, the development, the commitments that we make through our EU work to improving our actual situation on the ground. And that's just important to discuss with at a European level with the Commission, how we do that. And we do it also through networks, we do it through policy exchange, and that needs more focus than just the funding synergies.
Thank you. And that's where the new generation of regional smart specialization strategies can, of course, make a big difference. There's a gentleman over there. Yes, please.
Thanks very much. David Fenner. I work for Saxony-Anhalt, one of the German regions, and we're actually also a member of Erin and of Vanguard as well. But apart from that, I just wanted to ask, we've talked a lot about smart specialization. You mentioned it just now as well, the kind of regional dimension of this whole thing. And my question would be, how do we bring that together with Horizon in terms of the new programs that we have now, and the new opportunities that we maybe have in Pillar 3 as well? I'm thinking specifically of the Innovation Ecosystems program. Now, it's quite a small program, not that much money. So when you think about that kind of program, what value it would provide, where could it basically be used as kind of a catalyst to bring together regional innovation ecosystems along kind of certain smart specialization priorities, for instance? What are your thoughts on that?
We hear you, sir. This is exactly the intention of the R&I days, is that you give us the ideas. And I can assure you, there's a lot being said here. We take everything on board. We will not be able to deliver on everything, but we definitely listen to you, and we will try to do as much as what you wish for, to the extent possible. Is there any last comment, question of someone? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Patrice Boekholt from Innovation Policy Matters. When we started the smart specialization strategy, I think the essence of the message was that regions should not try to copy each other and all go for the same fashionable high-tech strategy, but go from their own strength, from their own capabilities and so forth. So I think that means we have to accept some sort of diversity, because we have different ecosystems. And I have the feeling that because the discussion here is so much about the funding of Horizon 2020, but Horizon Europe, which has a sort of a new philosophy for going for bigger impact, missions, sustainable development goals, are we not risking that we lose the essence of the smart specialization strategy, go for your own strength, and not try to find a solution in the money from Horizon Europe, because maybe the solution is not there? So, yeah, where has the smart specialization strategy gone?
Okay, well, maybe Johan will be able to say something about this, or Magda. Colleagues, can I turn to you maybe for a few quick reflections? We don't have time for long presentations, but what have you heard that you will take back in the work we will do together in the next few months? And I'll maybe start with Katja, then Magda, then Elisabeth, and then Johan. Katja, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very pleased that practically everything I wanted to say has already been said by the different panelists who were there, stressing that no, it is not only about money, it really is about strategies. And if you'd ask me what's the key, it's governance, governance, governance. And if you manage to bring the actors from different governance levels, the European, the program committees, whatever, together with the people who are implementing regional development funds, and at national or regional level, this is already key. And I would like to add one of the good examples which really shows that if you have a governance which is coherent, it does work. I would like to list Estonia among the countries which manage. It's the very same minister apparently sitting in the same building in the same corridor who manages the Erdf, research and innovation investments, and who is going to the Horizon program committees. No wonder that the two pieces fit together, and they're very well informed what the other side does. So very happy to hear this. Very happy also to hear you mentioned the sequential funding, because that is where you really have an influence as a member state or region. You build up the research innovation capacities, which are core of an ecosystem, regional innovation ecosystem. If you have no capacities, you're going nowhere. You have not necessarily the control, but you have the actors on the ground and can pull them together and work together and shape up, yes, to pick up on the question, the smart specialization priorities, which are and should be very specific for your territory. We had so much dreaming and scheming of becoming little Silicon Valleys and stuff, which is just totally off the shot. We heard Horizon is about excellence, and it should be about excellence. Nobody can be excellent in everything. But everybody can be excellent in one or maybe two areas. And that is what smart specialization really is about, to find out what you have the strength and what you can do. Picking up a little bit on the questions which came on rail, I think, and one other PPP. The thing is, or the good news is, you won't need to contact all, 377 managing authorities for the Erdf, for the 200 which have research investment foreseen. It's not necessary, because not everybody will invest in transport-related research innovation or in specific industrial applications. It will be just some, and that's what smart specialization is about, to help identify the regions where there is a strength and where they would really have the potential to cooperate for these very specific things. So looking at Johan Stirner next to me, that is what the colleagues try to digest in the databases he can talk about more easily, and helping to team up among the regions to do exactly what you asked for, to bring together the regions and see what they can do together. So for me, I have to say I'm very happy with the comments which came in. Maybe a little bit of response to José Caldeira on the dream of being able to replicate Horizon ways of intervention. I think your dream has come true. That's at least if Council and Parliament have the kindness to support that and not build in some other blocks. Aid intensities apart, but from the other side, there are possibilities if the member states wish so. But to end again with a complementarity, Horizon doesn't fund research infrastructures. It just doesn't. So you can't try to replicate anything, but there is nothing to replicate on the Horizon side.
Thank you, Katja. And there are representatives of member states in this room who I have seen already. I'm sure they will transmit the messages. And we can also become Estonian now, if I understand correctly. Magda, please.
So thanks for all the comments. Extremely interesting. We have been discussing with a few of you already in the past the ideas, and it's good that they are brought into the surface again. Of course, we have been listening and we have been working a lot together. As I always say, I'm seeing my colleagues more than my husband most of the time. We are working very closely together. So, and I think we have reached a lot, and our colleagues from DG Comp as well will tell you, because we were listening and we understood that some of the issues were linked, in fact, to the application of state aid. And through some examples, like the Seal of Excellence, we have been then moving to co-funded projects and tried to see eventually how we can simplify the application of state aid. In terms of regions, but I leave the floor then to my colleague. In terms of the regions' participation in Horizon, of course, very welcome to partnerships, so it's very open to all actors, including regions. This we know. You have been mentioning as well the regions, regional ecosystem, how they can eventually have a role as well, and we can co-create and and work together. So there is a specific, as you know, Pillar 3 that specifically mentioned this opportunity. And we have the partnerships as well, where there are co-fund actions. And this is a way in which as well we try to simplify as much as possible the participation eventually of Horizon to support this type of partnerships when the objectives align as well with the ones of Horizon. So there are a lot of some issues still to discuss in the implementation, but there is definitely a lot of willingness and a lot of progress as well done in terms of simplifications with the application of state aid. So maybe I just pass it on to my colleague.
Thank you, Magda.
Thank you. Well, having listened to your interventions, my first takeaway would be that, and not surprisingly, I'm aware that state aid rules are considered or sometimes seen to complicate things, are seen as a burden. But I'm also happy to hear, as a first reaction to the current ongoing revision of the CHIBR, that you consider this to be a very positive approach towards simplification. Talking about this limited or targeted review of the CHIBR court mentioned in the very beginning, I don't know if we can make dreams come true, but at least we hope that we might chase some nightmares and make them go away. Just to tell you a few things about the current CHIBR review. It's very targeted. It's meant to accompany Horizon Europe and MFF discussions. There are basically three fields of intervention. First, there are provisions on the ETC. Second, provisions on InvestEU. And third, and I think that's the most relevant provisions for us here, that's the provisions concerning projects which fall under the scope of Horizon Europe, that is research projects. You've already mentioned, Lena, the Seal of Excellence issue. Actually, there will be, or we propose to have in the future, a provision which allows for block-exempted funding for RDI projects conducted by SMEs who have been awarded a Seal of Excellence. But in the end, and that is the sense that we're not able to receive funding from the Horizon Europe envelope. So if member states in the future want to support such a Seal of Excellence project, they will hopefully, their life will be easier, hopefully, in the future. Because we propose to have a new article in the CHIBR, which allows them to build their assessment on the assessment already done by Horizon Europe experts, so that they don't have to assess the project twice, for example, as RDI quality is concerned, for example. And they'll also be able to use rules, eligibility rules, from Horizon Europe, which in the end should put the beneficiary in a situation which is not that different from the situation where he would be in if he had received Horizon Europe funding. This certainly also comes at a cost. I mean, I've already mentioned that there are some requirements, some safeguards, because we want to make sure that there isn't a project block exempted, which might be distortive. As I've already mentioned, it must be a project of an SME, for example. I don't want to go into too much details, just to give you an idea of what's happening in the moment.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth, and thank you for the cooperation on this. It's been a long-standing aim and a project of collaboration between us. My experience in public policy making is that our aim should not be to make people happy, but to take reasons away for being unhappy. And I think that's what we're trying to do. Johan, we have no more time left, but I would like to hear from you on missions.
Yes, I'll try to take up on the point of smart specialization. We've had, 5 years now. We have constructed a very strong new instrument and a process where you build on the diversity and you reinforce the strength. And now we have the new mission-oriented policy. So I think synergies could be constructed through policy design. And when I thought about that and we evaluate where we are, you could think that it's important that when you define the new missions, that you do it on a right level of granularity. So you put it at a relatively high level, so you allow for the diversity that comes bottom up. You can even think about that the mission boards, when they define, they could go out and discuss and talk to the regions that have chosen to specialize in the field that the mission area will cover. I think that will create a possibility of good synergies and respecting the diversity. And another thing I think is to think that when regions join in on missions, it should be on a voluntary basis. And there's a lot of things when you have a common directionality, you can gain a lot. You can gain a lot, and there's a lot of things about that. And the third level, I think it's important that when we talk about missions, it's not a Apollo mission. It's not an over-engineering. We are not setting every small details on what will happen. So it's very important to keep the bottom-up creativity in a mission-oriented approach. You allow for the entrepreneurial discovery process to create this diversity and create economies of scope as well, not only economies of scale, to turn the diversity in Europe into value, into new value chain and into new jobs.
Thank you very much, Johan. I'm under severe instruction to close the session on time at 11:30, but at my own risk and peril, and because I feel guilty of having arrived too late, I really would like to turn back, maybe for a last sentence, to our 4 panel members and ask you, is there anything that you have heard that makes you happy or very worried, or something you want to draw attention to? If you can, in one sentence, and I'll start on this side and then end with Mr. Clégeot. Please.
I think... Is it? No, it's working.
Okay.
Thank you.
In one sentence, please.
Yeah, so from the perspective of the regions, it's important to have the discussion about the strategy, but we shouldn't forget that the regions and the actors in there really also need the financial support to actually make things happen. So we shouldn't forget about it.
Thank you. Mr. Caldera.
Well, I'm happier than I was when I entered here, so I think we are moving the right way. I think just the last sentence, I think this capability of doing this virtual pot multi-synergies funding mechanism is critical for this inter-regional collaboration. And for example, this new instrument, the C5, that is still under discussion, should be worked out to facilitate these things. So, as I said, I'm happier. So I'm hoping that if not all of my dreams, at least some of them will come true.
And no more nightmares, as we heard.
Thank you very much.
Please, Lina.
Yes, I was happy to hear about the cycle and closing the cycle. I'm happy because it wasn't mentioned often enough. And my suggestion is to look a little bit when you design your regional synergies at the lesson that we have that Innofin was not used for synergies because the EIB wants projects that can make profit. And because regional policies are about increasing GDP, please look at that as well. Close the cycle.
Thank you very much. And the last word is for the Committee of Regions.
Two bad news and a good one. First bad news, don't believe it will be possible to finance projects from regional ecosystem in Pillar 3. There is no money in innovation ecosystem. So you have to fight. It's possible to finance it in Pillar 2. And second bad news, I don't believe in PPP if there are top-down dynamic. They must combine top-down investment, it's necessary, and real bottom-up initiative, real complementary bottom-up initiative. And the good news, perhaps we are together, step by step, coming from an era when it was about mobilization of researchers, and perhaps in the future, our policies will be mobilization of ecosystems and actors joined around same policies and same objectives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clégeot. Thank you to all the panel members. Thank you to my colleagues from the Commission Services. Thank you to Peter Schenk and other colleagues who have organized this session. Most importantly, thank you to you for being here, for participating. The public consultation is still open until tomorrow on the General Block Exemption Regulation and on Horizon Europe co-design, strategic plan and implementation strategy until the 4th of October. We still want to hear from you. Please help us deliver on the synergies. We want to make it very appealing, very attractive, very easy, but never force anyone to do anything that you don't want. Thank you very much and see you later.